Hey everybody, welcome back into the garage, and of course the 300 ZX Turbo project, the 86 Z31. Today's video we're going to be looking at the wheels, and I'm changing wheels over, so we'll talk a little bit about the fitment and what I've installed or am installing on the car. Okay, so like I said, wheels. They're actually very complex. I mean, I know they're just round and they hold a tire, but to get the right fitment on a car is actually fairly complicated. Not my intent on this video to go into in-depth calculations about it, but I will do a little explaining. I can't help it, I'm an engineer. But I'll do a little explaining as I go forward with what comes with the car versus what I'm putting on the car, and how they ultimately fit. So let's go in. Let's start with what came with the car out of the factory. Okay, so these are the wheels this car left the factory with. The original equipment wheels, and again, this is an 86 turbo car. 16-inch alloy, 114.3 bolt circle, so 4.5-inch bolt circle, 5 bolts. If you had a non-turbo car in 84, 85, you would have had 4 bolts instead of 5. Pretty common upgrade for people to change the hubs. And if it wasn't a turbo car, I believe you had 15-inch rims, not 16. And then I think in 86 they went to 5 bolt on everything. From 86 on, I think everything was a 5 bolt pattern. But anyway, this is what we've got on this car. So again, 16-inch diameter wheel. That's 16-inch. Don't throw a tape measure across here. The 16-inch is effectively the inside diameter, a hole in the tire where it goes in the rim. So you're actually measuring on the inside of the rim for the diameter. They're 7-inch wide, and again, you measure on the inside of the bead, not the outside. There's people selling wheels all the time. They throw a tape measure across the width and claim a width it's not. So 16-inch diameter, 7-inch wide, 5 by 114.3 bolt pattern. Hub diameter, so this is the diameter in here of the hub that centers the wheel. 66.1 millimeters, and the offset, so where the mating surface on the back of this wheel is relative to the center of the wheel, is 20 mil. So 20 mil offset. All 4 are the same, so they would consider a square setup. All 4 wheels are the same. They're not bigger or wider at the back than the front. So this is what it came with. Obviously it clears everything as it should. The complexity comes in is when you start to change, not really diameter. I mean, diameter is fine. You can change diameter, and then you change this aspect ratio, or how much sidewall you have to keep the overall diameter of the tire. Just so your speedometer is right and your clearance is right. But when you start changing widths and offsets, then you start moving the tire around relative to the hub, relative to the suspension, and that's where you got to look for clearance issues. The backs on these cars is good. There's a lot of clearance behind here and a ton of room at the front here, so you're fine for doing that. The issue comes more at the front. If you start changing offsets and get a wheel that is more into the 38s, 40 mil offsets, they start to push in a little more, and you get very near the suspension, or you're touching the suspension, the strut, and so that's where it gets a little complex. Anyway, enough geeky stuff. Let's go ahead and have a look at the wheels that I bought to put on the car to replace these. Okay, this is what I bought to put on the car. These are off of 350Z, so Z33 platform, so it's 2 generations newer than this, Z31. And they are 17-inch wheels, so gone up 1 inch. I didn't want to go up anymore. Again, it's a completely personal taste. I just don't like the super rubber band look on a car of this vintage. In fact, I don't like it on most cars, but I'm old. So in terms of specs, these are a staggered set. So these are the fronts. So they're 17-inch diameter, 7.5-inch wide. So half an inch wider than what it came with. And there's an offset of 30 on the fronts. The rears are 8-inch wide. So 17 by 8, offset of 33. So they're an inch wider than what it came from the factory with. And in terms of tire size, and I will put all this down. I'll give you all this if it's any interest to anybody. To try to maintain the diameter to be as near to the original ones as possible, so my speedometer is close and everything else. These are 235 45/17s on the rears and 225 45/17s on the front. So theoretically, the front are very slightly smaller diameter than the rear. But in terms of width-wise, if I'd have gone to a 40, these would have been too small a diameter. So these are basically the tire sizes that the 350Z would have come with. So I know I've got the right width and I'm not stretching them or, making the tire too wide for the wheel. I should also point out, I've refinished all these. See, they didn't come from the factory this color, they were silver. I've gone with this light champagne-y gold. Mostly I'm trying to tie in the gold with the gold accents under the engine. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you what they look like on the car as they currently sit right now. So just literally take the old ones off, put the new one on, and I'll show you the clearance and what they look like. Okay, so here it is on, just bolted straight up. Obviously, same bolt pattern. Being a Nissan, it's got the 66.1 hub diameter, so it fits right on there properly onto the hub. And I said 1 inch wider. If I feel back here, still got plenty of room back there to the suspension, and I am out here a little further. Not as much as I want it to be, but a little further. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a small spacer on here, and this is purely aesthetic on the rear here. It's got nothing to do with clearance. I just want these wheels a little nearer flush to these big arches. So the 86 got the wide body, but it got the flare much like the anniversary edition, except in steel. So I'd really like these out a little nearer to the outside of that. Okay, so just before I put the spacer on, you can get a bit of an idea there. It's still a fair bit of room here, so I can bring this out a fair bit and it'll still be under flush here. So at least that's the hope. I bought the spacers here, so I'm gonna put the spacers on, reinstall the wheel, and we'll check what our flushness is, our fitment is out here. All right, so these are the spacers I bought. 20 mil, which is near as, damn it, 3/4 of an inch. Obviously 5, 114, 3. They are hub-centric, which means this inner diameter here is going to sit on the hub, and they've got another flange here that's 66.1, so the wheels will center on this properly. I don't recommend you just buying the wheel spacers where this is just a large diameter and it fits multiple fittings, because you're never going to get this aligned with the center axis of the axle properly that you completely eliminate a vibration. You need the hub-centric rings. This is positional, and it takes a whole bunch of load that doesn't then go through the studs. The studs aren't designed for axial load to hold things. They're just designed to keep it clamped there. This keeps it in position. So if you do anything with wheel spacers, make sure they're hub-centric. Okay, so there's the spacer on. No big trick to it here. They come shipped with the mounting nuts on these studs, so you just put them onto your original studs on the hub. I've torqued them down to around 90 foot-pounds of torque, pretty much a spec for the wheel. So we're going to try that. We'll check them after a bit of driving, but that's what I'm putting them down to right now. That's not to say that's what you should do, but that's where I'm starting. Okay, so here's what it looks like. I personally like that. You could certainly come out more if you're just looking for flush, but for what this old guy was looking for, I think that looks a lot better. It's brought it out enough without it looking like I'm trying to be 20 again. And 20 mil spacers I'm comfortable with. I'm not sure I'm comfortable with, you know, when you start going up, you know, 1.5 inches, 2 inch, you're moving the load point on your axle out a lot. And it's really starting to load hubs differently than was designed. So, you know, I guess you got to bear that in mind. Or you can just put them on and just go for it. Anyway, so that's the stance look you're going to get with 8-inch wide, 33 offset, and a 20 mil spacer on it. And this is sitting on the lowering springs that have lowered it about 1 inch, I think. Not much, not a radical drop by any stretch, but it has, you know, it's a little less than factory up there. So we're going to do the front now. I'll show you on the front exactly the same thing. Okay, so front wheel, again, this is factory tire size. You can see where, and again, this is actually surprising, even with that gap, is lower, slightly lower than stock. Again, about 1 inch. This hasn't been driven since anything's been put on, so I'm hoping these are going to settle a little more. But regardless, here's where we are. Here's, you can see how much tucked in we still are here. So, and we are, I mean, it's hard to tell. We are very close at the back here. It's tight to this factory strut. This is a factory strut, so we're tight to that back there. And certainly if you went a bigger diameter, you would run more risk of not clearing this top part of the strut housing. Anyway, I'm going to throw the 350Z wheel on before putting a spacer on. I'll show you what you get, and then we'll go from there. All right, front wheel on, and it does clear back here. You know, to be fair, you could, I suppose, technically run it just bolted on. It's tight though. I mean, it's super tight to the strut. And again, these are 7.5 with a 30 offset versus 7 with a 20 offset. So they are sitting a little closer to the strut. They are out a little further. And again, you could probably get away with it. I'm certainly wasn't going to take the chance. Plus, they're a little underflush for me. So again, I'm going to try a 20 mil spacer, which is what I bought. So I'll show you what it looks like here, and then I'll show you with the spacer on. All right, so, you know, I know for a lot of people that gap is utterly outrageous, but anyway, it is what it is right now. As you can see, we are still underflush here. We can come out a fair bit more still. So I think the 20 mil is going to work, and you have to do something for the clearance here. So either you just do one of those 3 or 4 mil shims, which allows you to still use your hub diameter that's there to locate the wheel, or you go a wide enough spacer that you can get in them hub-centric. The other thing I notice is I'm going to struggle to put my center cap on with that there. So with the wheel spacer on, that should give me enough room to put my center caps on as well. So hopefully that's a win-win. Okay, so 20 mil spacers now installed in there. Yeah, right there. So exactly the same as the back. And it is underflush still, but it's not got that sucked in look where it looks like you've got these weird casters on the car. So we pick up a whole bunch of clearance at the back here, which is nice. And I think it looks a lot better. I mean, it'd be nice when I get it out and off these dollies, but I think that's a big improvement there. All right, so wheels are done, at least for me they are. And certainly there's two things about wheels. One, they can make your build. They're very important to the look of the car. And the second one, extremely personal taste. What's going to be good for somebody isn't going to be good for someone else. And, you know, they're also extremely easy to change. 5 nuts taken off and you can change the look completely, put a different set on, put the originals back on. I personally like what I've got here, but again, it's all about personal taste. So, as always, everyone, thanks a lot for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Maybe it's giving you some ideas if you're looking at a different set of wheels, rims for your car. And yeah, this is what the Z33s will look like on your Z31. As always, like, subscribe, always appreciated. And I hope everyone out there, you're driving safely, you have an awesome day, and I'll see you back here in the garage.